Let's bring in Mohamad Elmasry. He's a media studies professor at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. Mohamad, really good to see you again. This report by the Human Rights Watch, it illustrates in black and white, providing the evidence of what people in Gaza are going through and have been going through for the last year, what Israeli strikes have done to the people in Gaza.
Right, and it's not the first, obviously, it's not the first report that we've seen. I thought it was interesting that this report focuses a lot on forced displacement, which is maybe something that we don't talk enough about. But as Hani was noting, you know, there are people in Gaza who've been displaced now more than 10 times. There was just a report yesterday about a small child who has been displaced multiple times and who was rescued from under rubble for the second time. He's lost all of his family. And in this context, I think it's important to remind everyone that health workers and Doctors Without Borders have been using a newly invented acronym, and I had to write it down because it's a long acronym, WCNSF, Wounded Child No Surviving Family. There are so many of these kids who have been obviously displaced, but who have also lost all of their family members. They have no one to look after them. They're just wandering the streets. And this is one of the tragedies that I think needs even more attention.
Mohamad, I think the frustration for all of us, and you mentioned it yourself, this is not the first report. There have been numerous reports over the course of the last year outlining what is happening in Gaza. I mean, the Human Rights Organization recommending things like an arms embargo. Mm-hmm. We've heard that before.
Right.
But like my producer said to me just a little earlier, there is inertia at the highest level. Nothing is being done about this. What do we do about the situation?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the arms embargo, right? Because this is something that we've heard more and more about. There was this letter sent, I don't know, about 10 days ago or so by 50 plus countries to the United Nations calling for an arms embargo. And then there was the Arab Islamic Summit just a couple of days ago in Riyadh, also calling for an arms embargo. This is something that the global community pretty much agrees on. The problem, though, and to your point and to your question, the problem, though, is the United States and its closest allies, the world powers, right? Especially Germany and Britain. About 95% of Israeli weapons come from the United States and Germany. So as long as those countries scoff at the idea of international law, then we're not gonna get anywhere. There has been the suggestion that there might be a draft resolution put forward at the United Nations Security Council. There's no question in my mind that nearly all of the countries on the Security Council would support that resolution, but there's also no question in my mind that the United States would veto it. And so, to your point, one of the reasons why we are where we are is because of the United States.
Well, and briefly, Mohamad, since the last time we spoke, we now know that Donald Trump is going to be the next president of the United States. Is that likely to improve anything for the people in Gaza?
I mean, I said this, last week and the week before that it's a choice between bad news and more bad news for the Palestinians. Historically, there isn't a great deal of difference between Democrats and Republicans. Donald Trump was a nightmare last time for the Palestinians. I wouldn't necessarily expect a lot of improvement. He is a bit of a wild card. It's too early to tell exactly what his foreign policy is going to be vis-a-vis Gaza. There are suggestions that he may want to sort of wrap this up more quickly. He thinks it's, quote unquote, a bad look for Israel. This is what he said in a previous interview. But there are also indications, as evidenced by some of these appointments, that he might even be willing to be perhaps even more extreme than Joe Biden, as hard as that is to imagine.
Okay, thank you for that, Mohamad Elmasry, Media Studies Professor at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.